There's no evil in me. But there was a saying once that said, the seeds of Hitler and the seeds of Jesus are in us all. The question is, which one will we feed? Amen? We all have the capacity for incredible good, and we all have the capacity for incredible evil. Amen? And friends, I would venture to say that while very few of us, and I hope none of us, have accomplished that litany that I just ran through and the others that are in your mind, I would venture to say that everyone sitting in here would be, unfortunately, including myself, say, yeah, I've had a little evil in my life. Right? Deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil. But then I have to ask myself, well, what are we delivering ourselves from? Because again, this is such a charged word. It's like racism. It's a hard one to deal with because, again, we think of all these awful monsters, so that can't be me. Evil is one of those words, amen? So let's break it down for us. What is evil? What is evil? It is these huge, horrific things, but what else is it? I believe that evil is the conscious decision to live our life independently from God. It is the conscious decision to separate ourselves from God. And what is separating ourselves from God but sin? When we consciously say, I am going to do this act which will, we know, separate us from God and one another. That's evil. Really is. For quite frankly, I can't think of anything worse than being separated from God. I can't think of anything worse than being separated from God. When we allow something to become bigger than God in our lives, honey, that's evil. If not plain foolish. When we allow the pains and the hurt to become bigger than God, and when we allow ourselves to run from those pains and those hurts, and when we allow ourselves to do foolish things, amen? To think we can make that pain and hurt go away, honey, that's evil. Don't fool yourself. That is evil. When we intentionally make decisions that separate ourselves, when we put ourselves at the center of the world with disregard for those around us, that's evil. That's evil. It's dumb, too. Isn't it? It's just dumb. But we do it all the time. You know, evil is about separating ourselves. Sin is about separating ourselves. Acting to hurt one another. That's not right. It is just not right. You know, technically, if we were to dissect this prayer from in its original format, Reverend Neil and I were talking about this earlier, and you find it in a lot of the studies, it's either deliver us from evil or deliver us from the evil one. But honey, they're both the same. Sometimes we manifest the evil one when we hurt ourselves, when we hurt each other, when we do what we know we should not be doing. Amen? Deliver us from our foolishness. Deliver us from our foolishness. Because, you know, the resulting actions of this foolishness include, as I said, believing that we're separate, believing we don't have enough and we need to protect what we have at all costs, individually or as a country. I got to protect what I have. I got to protect my piece of the pie. And I'm going to do everything I can. Theme for a lot of movies, isn't it? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I have to protect what little bit I have. This is what I call a scarcity mentality instead of an abundance philosophy and theology, amen? When we have a scarcity theology, when we have a scarcity philosophy, we indeed are saying, I don't believe you, God. When we take what is not ours to make sure we have what we think we need. What we think we need. It's dumb and evil. When we hurt ourselves, and we engage in situations that we know are going to hurt ourselves or hurt others, it is, yes, sin, and it is dumb and evil. It is those things that are separating ourselves from God. You know, if we got to put a label on our addictions, let's do it. Whatever you want to call it, it's wrong. And I have been as guilty of that as many of you in here. I have put other things before God. I have put other things before the worthwhileness of myself and my life. I have put my fears before God. I have put my shame before God. I don't mean before laying it before God. I'm talking I put it before it becomes the God in my life. Right? I have put self-worthlessness before God in my life. And that's just dumb. And that's just stupid. And it's wrong. And yes, it is evil. Because it has separated me from God. It has separated me from God. Deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil. You know, when we see greed and we see fear and when we see war and when we see demonizing another person because they're different, when we disregard this earth and just say, well, the next generation can take care of it, that's really evil. Right?